Hi, welcome to Storytime with Dave Booker. Appreciate you being here. And today we're going to start really getting into Sheriff in a Small Town 4. So that one is out. It is published. I have added a link so that you can get your copy. Um, Trouble is I haven't got mine yet. So anyways, let's get going with the book. And the heading, the title, whatever, is Our Town. Rocky kissed Agnes goodbye, bent down to kiss Mary, and headed off to his office. Since it was a nice cool morning, he decided to walk. He'd gone back to living in his old home in the outskirts of town for a while. They were redecorating the place instead of trying to change it into a weekend camping site. Walking down the rutted road that led into town, he pulled out his notebook and pen. Fill in ruts so Agnes can drive her car without bottoming. He got the book out as he approached the town. He had a collection of notes from walking around since the tornado had hit. "Morning, George," he called out as he passed George Reed. George was so old he could have been around when the town began. He was a veteran of World War II and one of the original Morgan's Marauders. Sharpshooter who could clip the wings off a fly in his youth. Once he had retired, he found that he didn't like doing nothing, had asked the mayor for a job. He had been offered the position of street sweeper. Well, that had been 10 years ago, and he was still on the job, a little bent, a little grayer, but still enjoying being outside with a place to go and people to talk to. Before the sun broke, George was out with his small broom and dustbin sweeping up the curb trash. Town had considered buying a sweeper truck at one time, but the thought of doing George out of his position stayed their hand. Passing the lot that had held Morgan and Agnes's, and eventually Agnes and his old home, was a heartbreaking sight. The home had been destroyed, leaving a plot of rubble. Morgan had told him to sell it and not try to rebuild it. You can't rebuild a lifetime of memories by putting a new place in. Once they're gone, they're gone. So the lot was being cleaned out, and whatever memories had survived had been transferred between Rocky's old home, the snow house, and Morgan and Julia's home. To the right, he could follow the path the tornado had carved through town. In a cul-de-sac, he could see the chain link fence surrounding homes that being demolished. Trucks and scoopers were sitting, waiting to finish what the tornado had begun. In the heart of town, a few buildings were still boarded up from damaging high winds. Most had put up the boards up early at Sheriff Talbot's recommendation. Those who decided it was too much trouble ended with broken glass and water damage, losing a lot of money as well as business until repairs could be made and new stock installed. Just a question whether the buildings themselves would need to be rebuilt. If so, the former occupants would probably move or shut down completely. Rocky sat on a bench across from the bank and outside the courthouse and waited for the sun to rise. This was one of his favorite times of day, and he usually either spent it here on his bench where he could watch the sun rays bounce off the windows, changing the look of everything like a movie, or at the lake outside the town. That huge lake had some of the best tasting fish he'd ever had. The lake was off limits for fishing from March to early June so that the fish could recover. Locals knew this and respected the restrictions. Anyone fishing during the off time was guaranteed to be an outsider. It'd also be hoofed out of town by the locals. You just don't mess with a town's fishing spot, ever. He watched as the sun broke through the clouds, its beams showing red and gold and reflecting off the windows, casting deep shadows amongst the panels of light. Rocky rose, stretched, and headed to work. As he passed the general store, he waved as they got things ready to open. All up and down the street, folks called out agreeing to each other as doors were flung open and wooden wedges inserted to keep them open. As Rocky passed the butcher shop, he looked down and laughed at their door brick. Someone with a sense of humor had wrapped it up in butcher paper and put instructions on how to cook it. Place in the oven at 350 degrees for 532 days until tender, basted occasionally. He'd seen it hundreds of times, but still got tickled by it. He was always on the out for those personal touches people put into their places that folks rarely noticed. It had been fun to search for them, and once discovered, pass the word around about some fun little item someone would place in an out-of-the-way spot. He went to the co-op to get something for the candy dish in his office. Some of the people in the civic council building brought their children in before school, and he had made sure there was always something available for them if they came up to see him. Well, they usually did. Looking over the selection, he asked for a bag of jelly fruit slices and some chocolate kisses. Kisses were for him. Arriving at the civic building, he got a drink of water from the fountain, then watered the potted plant next to it. The receptionist's desk was clean and tidy, but by the middle of the day, it would be full of files, papers, notes, and other miscellaneous things from which he could immediately pull anything he needed with minimal effort. Somehow, she was always able to arrange everything so that her desk was neat and tidy by the end of the day. Entering his office, he opened the curtains and the windows, filled the caddy dish, and made a pot of coffee and checked his calendar. It was going to be a busy day. Not many meetings, but lots of progress to check on. As he wrote out things he needed to discuss with various offices, he noticed Morgan standing in the doorway waiting. Sorry to disturb you, but I was hoping to squeeze a few moments before you started running around. Rocky pushed his notes aside and indicated Morgan to sit. I don't understand why you wait outside like that. Just come on in, sit down like you did when I was sheriff. Just a different office, but I'm still the same guy. Morgan helped himself to a coffee and relaxed into a deep leather chair. Rocky, I'm planning on retiring at the beginning of next year. Josh has pretty much got the place sewn up and the events locked down. I really want to spend more time with Julia and the family in the meantime. I'd like to work 3 days a week, if that's all right. I'll put in whatever time that's needed when we're having an event, but Josh handles most of the advertising since it's his specialty. Rocky chuckled. He could never get used to Morgan, his father-in-law, being deferred. He was relieved that at least he still called him Rocky and not Mayor Stone. Sounds good, Dad. I know Agnes would love to see you more often, and Mary can't get enough of you. Morgan breathed a sigh of relief. Thanks, Rock. I'll get to my office and let Josh know. Rocky was watching Morgan depart with concern mingled with affection. He was glad Morgan was finally taking things easier. Agnes had been on her father for a while to visit more often, even if it was just to talk over coffee and cake. He got up and looked out the window. Squad car with Joe at the wheel passed by on his run around town. There was something purposeful in the way he was driving and a fixed expression on his face that made Rocky suspect that he was headed either to the hot dog hut or to see his wife, probably both. Down the street, Sheriff Talbot walked with long, purposeful strides, keeping an eye on things. He was holding a letter clenched tightly in his hand, and to Rocky, who knew him well, it either meant that the letter had something upsetting or that it was something he was very eager, though unsure about. Watching more carefully, he decided it was something he was unsure about. If that was the case, it was possible he just had to ignore to see him. Talbot arrived and stood in the doorway. Ever since Rocky had been elected mayor, he felt oddly uneasy when visiting. Well, as an old friend and the current sheriff, Rocky's office was always open to him, but he feared that he was disturbing Rocky on something that was unimportant. He knew that Rocky was doing a lot of damage control and rebuilding, not only from the tornado, but from the corruption of the previous mayor. Rocky turned as he heard steps walking up the stairs and beckoned him in. Looking at Rocky sitting on the edge of the desk in a blue work shirt and faded jeans made Talbot feel more comfortable. He knew that hanging in a closet was a blue suit that Rocky wore only when there were formal meetings or when important people were coming. During the normal times, he wore casual clothes and looked pretty much like everybody else. He was, as he called it, a working mayor. He greeted Talbot warmly, as old friends and past partners should. Hey, Talbot, it's good to see you. I was thinking about dropping down to your office and see if you wanted to get some lunch. Talbot relaxed. Rocky and he were still close, and being mayor hadn't changed anything. Rock, I got a letter, and I don't know what to do about it. It's from Greenville up north. They want me to become sheriff. Well, they're a small town, too, with about 5,000 people in the hilly area. Whole place is only about 4 miles square. There is a county sheriff for Licking County, so I'd just be responsible for my little piece. Rocky walked around and thought, well, sounds like you'd be on your own for a place that small. Yeah, you'd have county backup, but you're looking at times when you'd be dealing with plenty of downtime. It might be nice since you probably have more time with Michaela and Larry. Have you taken a trip out there? Yeah, it's nice and quiet. I spoke to the current sheriff, Sheriff Coltrane. He says he spends a lot of time at the schools talking to the kids so they know him and aren't afraid to come and see him in case of trouble. He does plenty of walking around or rides a bike instead of the squad car unless it's winter. Hell, I don't know have a clue what he'd do if he had to take a criminal in while riding this bike. Rocky sat behind his desk and relaxed. Yeah, sounds pleasant place. Kind of like being road. Now, for those of you who aren't prior military, road means this is it's military acronym that means retired on active duty. Yeah, that's what got me concerned. I like it here. We get enough action to keep us alert. I go there and I'm liable to get lazy and sloppy. Besides, let's step in here. Joe's an all right deputy, but I wouldn't want him as sheriff yet. Don't get me wrong, he wouldn't do a bad job, but he's still just a kid at heart. He needs a guiding hand to keep him straight. Rocky leaned forward and clasped his hands. Talbot, I can't tell if you want this or not. One second you're trying to find your replacement, next you're already worried about getting lazy at Greenville. Come on, level with me. What do you, and if I know you correctly, more importantly, what does Michaela want? She wants us to take it. Talbot said it almost guiltily and then lowered his head. Yeah, but what do we do about town? Rocky gave this careful consideration and looked up some information on the town charter. When he found what he was looking for, he turned the book around and grinned. Hey, look here. In times of emergency, a town council president acts as the mayor and the rest of the civil council as the government heads. Basically, it's what's already happening. I'm just a visionary who looks at the big picture, but Frank can do it just as well if I have to step down and go back to sheriffing. Talbot, are you sure this is what you want? Talbot went to the window, looked out over the town he called home, the one that welcomed him with open arms. He loved this place, but he wanted to spend more time with family. There he could do it and still do a damn good job. True, he'd be on his own, but he'd done it before and in a lot bigger area, too. He turned around solemnly. Rocky, I do want this. I feel bad about it, though. Kind of like I'm letting the town down since they voted me in. Well, will they allow you to wait until the next election? It's not for another 3 years. Or do they want you right away? Needed, I can ask for a special election just for the sheriff, or move Frank up temporarily here, and I'll work with Joe. Talbot got out the letter and reread a portion. Well, they want to just appoint me at the end of this year. Sheriff Coltrane is willing to wait until then. So I still have some time here. Think folks would understand? Rocky came over and led Talbot out to lunch. Pal, they'll want what's best for you. They'll always appreciate what you've done already and understand your reasons for wanting to leave. Sitting in the diner over roast beef open-faced sandwiches, Rocky pondered on the significance of them needing to appoint a sheriff when the town was only 4 miles wide. Surely the county sheriff would be sufficient. Later, when he checked on Licking County, he saw he was wrong. The county was much larger than what Talbot was responsible for here. Plus, while there were plenty of farms, the farmland was closer together and on the edge of the town. He looked over at his former deputy wistfully. Been an interesting first meeting, and not one Rocky had enjoyed at first. Took a slugfest between them to get the anger out of Talbot and bring him round. Since then, Talbot and he had been practically as tight as brothers. Kayla and Agnes were practically sisters and were constantly seen together. Kind of felt like breaking up a family, but you never say that out loud. This was what Talbot needed and wanted, and he'd do whatever he must to support him. Joe passed, saw them in the diner, screeched to a halt, and parked and dove inside. Hey, fellas, what's for lunch? Hey, that looks good. waved over the waitress and ordered the same. Sitting with Rocky and Talbot, Joe was as happy as a kid in a candy store. Just as quickly, he grew gloomy. Ash stopped off and checked in with Jacob at the garage. He's losing heart working there on his own. I know things have been busy. It seems he just doesn't have it in him to do it full time and all on his lonesome. I don't know what to do. Never had any problem working it by myself. I can't tell if he's just lazy or he's really not up to the job. He hesitated, then spoke his fear softly. I think he wants to quit. He looked over at Talbot pleadingly. If he quits, I've got to go back to working there full time. I'd lose that place and I've lost everything. When his lunch came, he ate quietly, and kept looking down the street where his business was, his eyes swimming in a lake of unshed tears. Talbot put an arm around him. Tell you what, it's the slowest time of the month. We don't have any major events coming up for another 2. Why don't you be on call? If I need you and you go back to the garage for a month or so, get things with your cousin sorted out. At the end of the month, call me and let me know how we stand. Hell, I won't hold it against you if you've got to go back to working there. Oh, you're still on the payroll since I've asked you to be on call once in a while. Will that help you out? Joe's tears were brimming over, ready to flood the diner. His garage meant the world to him since it was his only connection to his dead father. Finished up and thanked Talbot at least 20 times before bursting out and running down the street. He stopped, ran back, and tossed Talbot the keys to his squad car and his badge. He had left his sidearm in the glove compartment. Putting on a burst of speed, he suddenly leapt up and clicked his heels and ran even faster. Talbot shook his head. Yeah, now I know why he's never brought a new car and just drives around that old truck. This truck won't go over 40, and with that kind of energy, he'd be speeding around everywhere and getting ticket after ticket with a hot rod. Rocky agreed. Talbot, I think you might want to hit Josh up on helping out if Joe can't do it. He's beginning to have too much time on his hands and is feeling guilty. Between him and Morgan, they've got these events sewed up and everything is set out in the continuity book. Call's all it takes to set everything in motion, and then all they do is check on the progress. It's odd to say, but they might have done too good of a job. I've even set up a continuity book for the mayor's office. Don't understand why they've never thought of or having one before. Talbot laughed. Hey, careful, buddy. You're doing a pretty damn efficient job too. You may be doing yourself out of a job as well. Rocky grinned and thought that wouldn't be a bad thing if it did. Imagine a town so well run it didn't require anything more than a part-time mayor. As long as the council was working well. The more he considered it, the better it sounded. The town liked things the way they were. They wanted to keep it the same for the future. Well, that meant things in town took minimal planning. It was already done, even the events. Couldn't be that many more, or the calendar would become overloaded and the town bogged down. Place needed time for maintenance and a little peace and quiet. Talbot finished his lunch and got ready to head back out, pensively tossing the keys to the squad car in his hand. Hey, Rock, want to do a run with me? Rocky took a last swallow of coffee, rose, and dived for the squad car. When Talbot let him in, Rocky looked as excited to go for a ride as his dog Tucker did when he took him out in the truck. Driving around town was like turning back the clock. Two friends chatted about things happening in town, what people were talking about, and what they wanted. Both men had pretty much heard the same concerns, and each had a way of handling things that made people happy. Rocky and Talbot both preferred the hands-on approach rather than to call others in. You know, Talbot, for a lot of things people see me about, all I have to do is pick up a phone, but I realized recently that I need to go back to visiting people in person. Phone call makes it seem like an order. Visiting in person makes it a request. It made a big difference once I went back to going to their offices. Changed the dynamics. That was interested. How's that? Well, if I call the office, I'm the one with the authority. If I visit, I'm in their office. I'm on their turf, so it becomes a request. I'm asking for their help. Then, if they do it, I call them and thank them. Yeah, I think I see what you mean. For me, it's just the opposite. If I call someone, it's a friendly inquiry, but if I show up, even if it's in their office, I got the authority of this badge. It's kind of intimidating. On the phone, the badge don't show. Rocky thought about it and realized Talbot was right. Over the phone, Rocky was a mayor, and the title was enough to make people squirm. When he went in person, he wasn't dressed like a mayor. He dressed like everyone else, and it made meeting with people more comfortable. It was odd that something so small as the way he dressed and where he met them could change so much. Talbot was slowing the car down and staring intently. In the area where some of the homes had been damaged by the tornado, they were waiting for demolition. The pickup truck was centrally parked. The truck was plain and had nothing denoting what company it was working for. A couple of men were entering the remains and seemed to be scavenging the copper wiring. Talbot handed over the badge and gave it back to Rocky. Come on. He parked and slid out quietly. From inside the house, he heard them banging away with a sledgehammer and someone grunting as they pulled a cable out. Talbot pointed for Rocky to head to the rear so that they approached from both sides. Rocky felt the thrill of anticipation that he hadn't felt in a long time. His muscles constricted in readiness, and he worked to loosen them. From an opening in the wall, he saw the two ripping out the cable from the ceiling and down the walls. The man with the sledgehammer wiped his brow. Hey, Lou, how much are we getting per pound on this stuff? Oh, damn it, Tony. I've already told you that 3 times now. We get $1 a pound, and once we got at least 300 pounds worth in the truck. Once we're done here, we'll clear about a couple of hundred each. Ed was standing in the doorway. I'd say that should cover your fines, but you still get about 6 months or so. He shrugged and moved towards him. The one with the sledgehammer raised it ready to throw, but Rocky entered quickly and grabbed it when he had it behind his head. Both men were willing to battle it out, which brought a smile to Rocky's lips. He laughed. One man swung, easily avoiding the punch. He swung back and knocked him down. Twirling, he grabbed the other as he punched forward with piston-like force. Clamping a hand on the arm, he forced the man to the ground and pinned him with a knee in his back. Talbot came up and handed over a pair of cuffs. Back in the courthouse, they waited for pickup as the two men argued about who was to blame for them being arrested. The men were collected quickly as the state patrol had a person nearby heading upstate. Back in the squad car, Rocky was all attention on what was passing by the window. He seemed eager for more action. Rocky, you need to relax, man. I doubt we're going to have any more fun today. Rocky eased back in the seat. Yeah, you're probably right, but damn, I miss that feeling. Talbot nodded and headed towards the lake. Been close so that the place could do some cleanup with half the town. People were usually careful about trash, but once a year they did clean up as a matter of course. Now it was ready to be reopened. Pulling out, Rocky unlocked the barrier and Talbot drove inside. Sitting at the water's edge, a youth of 10 was sitting with his feet in the water and a line far out. Talbot and Rocky sat down at one of the benches and looked around. The fish were leaping and swimming contentedly. After all the hustle and bustle of the cleanup, they usually gave a few days so the fish could simmer down. Rocky watched the perch leap out and dive back in. The fish seemed happy. The boy looked over at them. Yeah, happy, not hungry. I've been here all morning and haven't caught a thing. Rocky strode over and looked into the depth. Plenty of fish here by the shore. Why cast so far out? Because that's where the big ones are, and I want to catch a big one. Rocky nodded. What are you using for bait? The boy held up what looked like a worm. It's a hot dog. Mom sliced it up for me. She said a fish wouldn't know the difference between this and a worm. Rocky wasn't sure about that, but what the hell? Talbot came over when he saw a long line of water headed towards the line. Well, I think you've got your big one. Hold on tight, buddy. Boy's pole was a long bamboo rod with wristbands attached. Wristbands were something neither man had ever seen on a pole before. The boy slipped his hands into the straps and braced himself. Suddenly, he was propelled into the water and dragged. Rocky leapt in and grabbed hold of the boy by the belt. Talbot had held on to a tree root and held on to Rocky's belt. Took all their combined strength to bring the boy on shore. Rocky and Talbot helped bring the fish in up to a certain point. When it looked as though the fish had no more fight left in it, they let the boy finish on his own. That way he could say he caught it and he landed it by himself. As the fish got nearer, Rocky gasped, "My God, you've got the big one, all right. The old boy himself." The boy got him as close to shore as he could, then fell down on the ground. Talbot assisted in bringing the fish to land and then ran to get the squad car to get the camera. When he got back, Rocky was kneeling at the side of a 52-pound fish. And he was looking kind of sad. It looks like the old boy finally got his time in. The boy looked crestfallen. "I didn't mean to kill him." Rocky put an arm around his shoulder. "Well, you didn't exactly. He was so old he was probably going to go soon anyway. Tell you what, let's get him fixed up and then take him to see Paul the butcher. He can carve him into chunks for you and do it so that they can mount the rest. By the way, what's your name? Newspaper's probably going to want to know." Hughes' head snapped up. "The newspaper?" Rocky tousled his hair. "Hell yeah, it's a catch of the year and you did it." Rocky gutted the fish and Talbot soaked the blanket, then wrapped the fish for transport. At the butcher's, the boy became the center of attention. One of the customers ran to the Sentinel and got a reporter. Carl got his photo taken and then related how he had captured the biggest of them all. He was honest enough to share the credit with Rocky and Talbot, who downplayed their assistance, and that it was young Carl who had caught and landed the big one. The fish was cut up and wrapped. Some was frozen and stored at no charge. There was going to be way too much to eat all at once. Carl requested that the skin and head be stuffed and put into the Historical Society. What fish could be used that night was wrapped up and handed over to him for dinner. Rocky and Talbot took him home in the squad car in style, with sirens blaring. Rocky and Carl's home, his mother came out in a panic. Carl leapt out of the squad car and she protectively placed him behind her. For her son to arrive in the screaming squad car, flanked by the sheriff and mayor, made her tremble. "Sorry for the fright, ma'am, but we were celebrating Carl's deed of daring do." She looked at Carl, blurted out, "Mom, I did it! I got the big one! The real big one in the lake!" She was incredulous, but Rocky and Talbot vouched for the veracity of his boast. The darn thing put up a heck of a fight, but he got it in the end. I never would have thought of using hot dogs as bait. She blushed and put an arm around her son. Suddenly her face paled. "Oh, dear Lord, we're going to be eating fish until the second coming if it was all that big." Rocky acknowledged the actual weight in fish meat. "Yeah, sorry to tell you, but there's another 35 pounds of fish waiting in the freezer at the butcher shop." She looked at her son, worried, and he hugged her understanding. "It's okay, Mom. We can give plenty away. Or maybe we can cut it up and do a big fish fry for the next big event. We get rid of it and make a few extra bucks off it. What do you think?" She kissed him on the forehead. "Sounds good. That's just what we'll do." Talbot and Rocky took their leave, and as she walked them to the squad car, she suddenly realized that all three were wet through. She apologized all the way to the car. Rocky and Talbot laughed it off, saying it was a warm day and they'd be dry in no time. With the windows open, the heater on, the car soon fogged up. "Let's just turn off the heater and wind dry," was Talbot's suggestion. They headed out to the farm area and opened up the engine. With a strong, warm breeze, they were soon dry and laughing about the day. Rocky hit his knee with his fist. That's what I miss. The constant odd things you never planned for, but always seem to pop up in our job. Hell, now I'm there. I don't get the chance to have the fun part of the job. I don't like leading parades and putting me and my family on show. I don't like going to meetings and all the soothing egos to push things through. Hell, I don't think I'm cut out for being mayor. All I want to do is get things back under control. Talbot understood how Rocky felt. Hell, he'd feel the same as the mayor. It wasn't that the job was harder than sheriff, just totally different. It required a different personality to do it. Dropping Rocky off at his office, Talbot drove over to check on Joe. All right, that's it. The next chapter is family, and we'll be reading today is Friday, so we'll be reading on Tuesday. So I appreciate you being here. I look forward to seeing you, and well, that's it. So be good to yourself. Have a good day. Bye.